The Toyota RAV4 is the best-selling non-pickup truck in the United States, and a new generation should be coming, or at least be announced, by the end of this year and available next year. And we've heard very little about it. I've made previous videos talking about that it's going to be fully hybrid or plug-in hybrid, but we didn't know too much about the powertrains. Are they just like the Camry's powertrain, which, by the way, I have the new Camry in the driveway this week for a week-long review, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss my impressions of a daily driver that is the Toyota Camry. But we have information coming out of Japan through Best Car Magazine about what's happening to the RAV4's brother, you could say, the Venza, which was discontinued here in the United States for the Crown Estate, but it lives on as the Harrier over in Japan. And that Harrier is getting detailed by Best Car Magazine, and I expect similarities from this vehicle to make it here stateside in the RAV4. So what are they saying about it? Let's find out. First of all, let's just take a look at the new Harrier slash Venza. No, we're not going to get it in the United States, but you know, the RAV4 is such a popular vehicle, and Toyota's taken the liberty to make the Corolla into a bunch of things. And you could say the RAV4 is essentially a Camry crossover. And I don't know if it's always been, but it feels like it definitely is now. Could they come out with RAV4 coupe-like crossover? Well, Toyota doesn't have enough room in their lineup anymore. It just has so many models in it, especially with the Crown models now. I just don't see this design coming as a RAV4 coupe, as cool as it may be. I think a lot of you would just rather have the Crown Sport because it looks way better than this anyways, the Crown Sport does. But the side profile of this is pretty cool. It's pretty impressive. And it kind of looks like a lifted Camry from the side with a shorter back portion, absolutely. But I'm not going to worry too much about the design. It's what's on the inside is there's a possibility of it coming to the RAV4. If you look at where the Venza and Harrier has right now, it has the exact same powertrains as the RAV4. So with this article detailing what's coming in the next Harrier slash Venza, there's a really good chance that these powertrains could be slotted into the next generation RAV4 that could be unveiled by the end of this year. All right, so let's get into it. It all starts with the multi-pathway press conference that Toyota, Subaru, and Mazda held on May 28th. And the dust is still clearing from that, and I did create a new spreadsheet today. So, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. They want to use CO2 neutral fuels in these engines. They're all going to be hybrids. The new engines developed are a 1.5 liter and a 2 liter. And I'll flash those on the screen for you guys while I read this. The 1.5 liter has two variations, as far as we know. A naturally aspirated hybrid as well as a turbo hybrid. Now there's also the range topping 2 liter engine, and that is, as far as we know, only a turbo at this point in time. The 2 liter for sure will be seen in a lot of high performance products, from the Gazoo racing lineup to bigger, heavier Lexus models that need to have a lot of torque and power. But they're saying that the editorial department of Best Car has obtained information on the 1.5 liter engines that are smaller in volume. They have less height, but they'll have a higher thermal efficiency than what we currently have on the market. And these will comply with Euro 7 emissions regulations. 5th generation Harrier 1.5 liter turbo and the plug-in hybrid debuts in 2026. We're less than 2 years away, or about 2 years away, from seeing an all-new plug-in hybrid with a new turbo engine, but we could see the 1.5 turbo hybrid come to the market before the turbo plug-in hybrid. And speaking of turbo plug-in hybrid, I just drove this morning and reviewed. The review is not up quite yet. The Volvo XC90 plug-in hybrid with the 2 liter turbo. The thing's an absolute missile, and it's so smooth, so luxurious. It's a very impressive powertrain, mixing the best of electrification and the best of internal combustion together. All right, so we're going to go to the second half of this article where it gets a little bit more exciting, I think, for a lot of us. The next generation 1.5-liter engine will cover the B segment to D segment. B segment we don't see a lot in the United States. That would be something like the Yaris, which was discontinued. If you look at, let's say, the Mitsubishi Mirage, that's definitely B segment. The old Honda Fit. The Nissan Versa that I reviewed is what I would call B segment as well. Now, the 1.5-liter will start there. So the smallest vehicles, not counting like mini cars that just have 2 seats and no back seat. But anyways, it'll cover B segment cars, some of the smallest cars on the road, especially here in the United States, all the way to D segment. That would be like Highlander or Lexus RX, for example. They're saying, in other words, this engine will be used in most of Lexus major models. NX, RX, possibly ES as well. The naturally aspirated 1.5 liter will be used in B and C segments. So we're looking at Corolla Cross, Corolla, CHR for other markets, Prius. That's on the bigger end, but on the smaller end, it's going to be Yaris, Yaris Cross. Aqua, for example, is going to be the naturally aspirated. Turbo is used in C and D. So the 1.5-liter turbo is going to spread from something like, let's say, a Prius all the way to a RAV4. So we have 3 engine configurations, right? 1.5-liter naturally aspirated, hybrid, 1.5 turbo hybrid, and then you have the 2.0 turbo hybrid. But according to them, there will be a plug-in hybrid of each engine configuration. So you have a hybrid of all those engines, and then you'll have a plug-in hybrid on top of that. I don't know if we would see every single iteration of those plug-in hybrids here in the United States, but there's a good chance we would see all of those hybrids. And like I said, we'll get into the spreadsheet here in a little bit and how those powertrains could slot into something like the RAV4 in little time. And you might be saying, Kirk, none of that production is here stateside for those engines. Well, not yet. One of my best sources that has a big understanding of the Kentucky plant, when I asked him about, hey, would you guys be able to switch over production? He's like, yeah, that's what Toyota wants. Toyota wants us to be able to be flexible to react to market needs. So they can switch production at any given time. He says it's really easy. They just change the programming in the computers, and that changes the machine's algorithms, and then they can just make all these new engines seemingly at the drop of a hat, even here in the United States. Okay, they build engines multiple places, but in Kentucky, for example, as well as in Alabama. Now, I already made a video earlier this week saying that the Corolla is going to get this 1.5-liter naturally aspirated engine, but they also mentioned in the following pages that the Corolla will get a plug-in hybrid with that 1.5-liter. And so I'll take some stabs at that in this video too. We talk about how the Corolla should debut sometime in 2026, probably as a 2027 model year. This one could beat it to the market with that new powertrain in 2026. But time will tell. It just depends which one comes out first. So without further ado, here is the spreadsheet that I came up with a rough ballpark of where each of these powertrains is not only with like which vehicles are they going to serve, what kind of power they're going to have. And it's going to be exciting. All right. Before I get into each individual engine configuration here, think about it this way. Toyota, as well as all manufacturers, need to reduce costs, all right, as well as improve emissions. So they have to shrink their technology, and they also have to shrink how many iterations of that technology there are on the market for reducing costs, as well as improving reliability. So we're going from 6 engine sizes that I have listed in the second row here, all the way down to just 2 engine sizes. And when you're able to put all your R&D into just 2 engines, your reliability should go up. Your efficiency should go up too. And with these new engines, of course, they're all with hybrid setups. They're going to have more electric assist than ever before, thanks to bigger batteries and more efficient motors. The gasoline engines themselves have a shorter stroke compared to the engines they're replacing. So in theory, they should be able to rev higher, produce more power. Their thermal efficiency is said to be over 46%, but torque will be down. But the electric motor in the hybrid system is going to be torqueier than any motors in the past. So it's not really, we're not dropping anything. We're actually gaining torque here with bigger batteries. Like I said, the engines are more compact. We'll have new car designs that don't, like, since the hood height can be lower now, we can put in new car designs for more aerodynamic and more, I don't know, pleasing to the eye designs. All these engines can run on biofuel or synthetic fuels. At least that's the goal in the future. These engines don't cover like the trucks or some of the high-end luxury models. In theory, I have concerns about the twin turbo V6 that's currently recalled. Toyota didn't share anything about an inline six or an engine to replace the 3.4 liter twin turbo. It is possible that they could use the plug-in hybrid setup here to replace the twin turbo V6 with a 2 liter inline 4. I just don't see that happening in a heavy duty truck, for example. Questions are still there about the long-term reliability and short-term reliability of the twin turbo V6. And that is not something I can really tackle and chew in this video. This is going to be all the powertrains that don't include their F platform. And yes, you'll see this 2 liter turbo in theory in something like a Tacoma or Hilux, for example. But for the largest pickup trucks, as well as the LX and the GX, Sequoia, things like that with the twin turbo V6, I just don't know the future there. I wish Toyota had a 3 liter inline 6 like the B58 or like the Hurricane inline 6 that I drove in the Ram Tungsten. Those are far better engines than Toyota's, their twin turbo V6. But I think they can hit it out of the park with their mass market engines here for smaller vehicles. And it all starts with the 1.5 liter naturally aspirated. It's replacing the inline 3-cylinder 1.5 liter that we don't see here in the United States. It's on the Lexus LBX. It's on the Yaris Cross, things like that. This 1.5 liter will also replace the 1.8 liter that's seen in the Prius outside of our market, but it's also seen in the Corolla hybrid that I just reviewed here on the channel about a month ago. So check out that review. And I think there's a really good chance that it replaces the 2 liter inline 4 hybrid that we see in the Corolla Cross currently that has 196 horsepower. We also see that in the Prius, 194 horsepower, 196 horsepower, somewhere in there. Okay, this one engine could replace 3 engines by itself and throughout the Toyota B and C segments. Best Car is saying that the engine itself makes 130 horsepower, but it's hybridized. Remember that. It's going to be assisted with electric motors, so we'll see at least 150 horsepower. It could be as high as 170. So it's a guess. But if it's going to replace the 2 liter hybrid, it's got to have, at least it's got to be close to the Prius's 200 horsepower. So I would say 150 all the way up to 200 horsepower. We could see this 1.5 hybrid inline 4. But Best Car is saying that this powertrain will also be a plug-in hybrid. Again, I'm 100% certain on this engine. I'm not 100% certain on this engine, at least coming to the United States. But it would make at least 220 horsepower. It would have a bigger battery than what we have currently on the Prius Prime. Toyota wants to keep giving customers more and more electric range with their plug-in hybrids. And we could see this in the CHR, for example, in Europe. But not we, but you guys over in Europe could. And they want to be hitting more than 50 miles of range. Toyota is on record for saying they want to get over 100 miles of electric range on their plug-in hybrids. It's only a matter of time. Will we see it with these engines? Probably, but maybe not at launch when these launch. Okay, 2026 timeframe is what we're hearing. And will the RAV4 have these powertrains? Well, it's really difficult to say. And the reason is, even though they can switch engine production really quickly here in the United States from something like the 2.5 liter to the 1.5 liter or the 1.5 liter turbo, the RAV4 is supposed to be out in 2025 as a next generation. And I don't think they would delay it just so it could have these new, more efficient powertrains. But they could if they wanted to. It's really tough to say. Could they move up these powertrains? Is Best Car not on the mark saying 2026 for these powertrains? Maybe it could come in the RAV4 in 2025. That's a possibility as well. I would say it's less than a 50-50 shot making it in the RAV4 at launch with the new generation next year, but we will see them in the RAV4 eventually. Just don't know how long it's going to be until Toyota switches that over. If we look at what happened with the Highlander, it had the V6, and the next model year, what was that for 2023? something like that. The 2023 model year, the Highlander went from V6 to Turbo 4 like that. Toyota can do the exact same thing with the RAV4. The first couple of years, maybe it's 2.5 liter, then they switch it over to the 1.5. All right. But this 1.5 liter plug-in hybrid is probably going to replace the Prius's non-plug-in hybrid as well as the Prius's plug-in hybrid. And we should be able to get front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive out of this, a bigger battery, more range. All right, 1.5 turbo. This thing is going to replace all of the 2.5 liter engines here in the United States and across the world in due time. The engine itself doesn't, in theory, doesn't have as much peak horsepower, at least according to Best Car Web, around 180 horsepower. They could always tune that with more boost to provide more horsepower if they wanted to. And where the 1.5 liter is weak with torque, when you turbo it, there's gobs of torque and turbocharged powertrains. So we'll be seeing a lot better torque response here with this turbo 1.5 liter that replaces all of the 2.5 liter hybrid setups. So I'm expecting 250 horsepower. It could be more, and it could be very, very efficient. The 2.5 liter ranges from, I think, 219 horsepower on the current RAV4 all the way up to around 245 horsepower on something like the Sienna. So, it could top out over 250 horsepower. And Toyota wants to use bigger batteries even on their standard hybrids. So we're going to possibly a 2 kilowatt hour battery here, which will improve fuel economy. The Sienna hybrid has a 1.9 kilowatt hour battery, for example, and I was able to get 46 miles per gallon in and around town, just really babying the thing. Let's say the RAV4 currently gets 40 miles per gallon. We could see 42, 43, 44 miles per gallon with this new inline 4 turbo hybrid. And just like the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter being replaced by this engine, when you go to the RAV4 Prime, that setup will also be replaced by the 1.5 turbo. With a bigger plug-in hybrid battery, you'll still have well over 300 horsepower. I'm hoping it comes to vehicles like the Sienna, for example. It will definitely come into different crowns that we don't get here, the Harrier as well, and we'll still have very impressive electric propulsion. Now, if you guys want more performance, well, Toyota has more performance to give. If 300 horsepower is not enough on their plug-in hybrid 1.5 liter turbos, you step up to the new 2 liter inline 4 turbo and hybridize it, it's going to be very impressive. It ousts the 2.4 liter that's in the NX 350, the RX 350. It's in the Highlander. It's in the Grand Highlander hybrid. It's in the Grand Highlander non-hybrid. It's in the TX. It's in a ton of vehicles here in the United States. It's in the Crown sedan here in the United States too, the inline 4 turbo, but that's in the hybrid version. But this is hybridized as well. Keep that in mind. We're not going to see this non-hybridized unless it's a GR product. That's my guess. So the 2 liter inline 4 turbo, I don't think they're going to put it with a CVT, or should I say the eCVT we see in Toyota hybrids. I think it's a performance engine, just like the 2.4 that it replaces, and they're going to put it with a 6-speed automatic to control the wheels up front and put a big, powerful e-axle in the back. The engine by itself should be capable of at least 300 horsepower. We're hearing rumors in the Celica. Again, we don't have confirmation on the Celica, but the Celica was rumored to have this engine before these engines were even announced. All right. So an all new 2 liter up to 400 horsepower, the engine alone in the Celica. But for these hybrids and these mass market vehicles that are not race cars or sports cars, they'll probably keep it around 300 horsepower. And then you get another 100 horsepower from the hybrid system here easily. I'm not 100% certain on this. I know this powertrain is coming, or should I say I know the 2 liter turbo is coming 100%. I just don't know about the transmission. Maybe they keep the 6-speed, or maybe they go to an 8-speed, or maybe they go to the eCVT. It's hard to say, but this engine is a lock. Just how it's going to communicate that power to the wheels through a transmission, we're not quite sure yet. This guy is going to be a very rare powertrain, the 2 liter inline 4 plug-in hybrid, and it would replace something like we see in the Lexus TX 550h Plus and the Century SUV that has a 3.5 liter V6 naturally aspirated hybrid. And they would probably, again, not put it with an eCVT. They'd probably put it with a 6-speed, but it replaces the V6. You would have 500 horsepower on here, I have no doubt. All-wheel drive, of course, over 20 kilowatt hour battery. So you're going to have at least 50 miles of range. It's going to be freaking fast. It'll be 0 to 60 on this could be 4 seconds. If you don't really need to go faster to 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, in my opinion. I did it yesterday in the Durango SRT Hellcat. I did 3.81, I think, 0 to 60. It's just, once you get it to under 5, it's so fast in just about any vehicle for street usage. You get diminishing returns, all right? But 4 seconds, 0 to 60 is definitely a possibility here. It'd probably be about 5 seconds, 0 to 60 here, maybe even faster since you don't have the weight of this big battery. 0 to 60 on the 1.5 turbo, around 6 seconds, kind of where the RAV4 Prime is right now. This guy would be very quick, the 1.4 or the 1.5 turbo hybrid. It could be 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. The 1.5 liter plug-in hybrid, 0 to 60 in probably 6.5 seconds. Is going to be similar to what we have currently with the Prius Prime. And this is going to be probably 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds. I want to say the Corolla hybrid that I just drove was 0 to 60 in about 8.5 seconds, almost 9, which is pretty quick, but we're going to get a lot more electric assist. So performance goes up, efficiency goes up, costs should go down for Toyota, reliability should go up for them. I know you're saying, Kirk, how is a turbo more reliable than a naturally aspirated? Yes, I understand that there are more moving parts, but when you only have 2 engines to figure out, maybe 3 configurations total when you throw in a turbo on the 1.5 liter, it's very, very simple compared to Toyota trying to figure out all of these solutions to fit different segments. When you turbo things, it can scale segments. When you hybridize things, it scales even better. All right. I know it's a long video, but these powertrains 100% are the future of Toyota, especially here in North America with battery electric vehicles just really hitting a slow period of growth. And these are the engines that will be in the RAV4. Just don't know when they'll be put in the RAV4. Don't know when they'll be put in the Camry, the Grand Highlander, the Corolla, things like, well, the Corolla is 2026, 100%. I'm almost 100% positive this 1.5 liter hybrid will be in the next gen Corolla coming out in 2026, 2027. This guy right here, and as well as this, they will be coming in 2026 as a 2027 model year in the Harrier and Venza. It could very well come into the RAV4 around that time frame as well. Which of these powertrains are you looking forward to the most? I can't wait to drive all of them. I think they're all going to be fantastic. The plug-in hybrids, I just can't wait to see what kind of battery size they squeeze into all these hybrids, from the normal hybrids all the way up to the, the most expensive plug-in hybrid. Toyota, like I said, wants to have 100 miles of range at some point in the future. How far these will bridge that gap, we don't know. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and stay tuned for more Toyota news coming down the hatch. I got some exciting stuff coming for you later this year. Thank you for watching, and peace out.